Hello everyone, my name is Justin Richards. I'm a support representative with Metalogic Software. I work with the email archiver team. Today we're going to do a quick session on retention and retention settings. So today the goal is really just to provide a better understanding of how the retention categories work and the settings within each of the retention categories works. The topics listed here that we're going to go over is what is a retention category, the deletion process for removing archived emails, understanding how life cycling works, dealing with shortcut settings, and we'll cover automated document deletion towards the end of the meeting. So basically a retention category works out to be how long the mail is held within the archiver. It also dictates the shortcut settings of the mail once it's archived. So this allows you to either keep the original message in the mailbox in exchange with no effect of savings, or you can opt to use a shortcut which will allow you to save space and still allow the end users to access the archived emails from Outlook. So I'm going to switch over here to my test server here, and we can go over sort of the basic settings of. So here we have the Enterprise Manager. I'm currently in the Manager view under the Retention tab. So we have some set up retention categories already. We're going to ignore these for the time being. What we're going to do is we're going to set up a new retention category from scratch just so that I can explain things as we go along. The first thing we do is we name our retention category. This helps you remember what the purpose of the category is for. So for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to call this test. Next, we need to point to an HSM schema. So the schema is going to be basically which HSM you're going to store to. If you're in an environment with more than one HSM, you can target HSMs directly through your retention categories. So since my test environment only has one HSM, we'll target that. With lifecycle calculation, we have two options here. You can either calculate from when the message is archived, so that's when we remove it from Exchange and add it to the HSM, or you can target from the receive date on the message. Depending on which one you target will depend on how the rest of the times in the life cycles are calculated, and I'll explain that more with a handy graphic that I have in my slides. For the test here, we're going to just go with archive time. You can also give yourself a little note here down in the description area. So if you're coming back at time, it'll go, okay, now I know why I set the category up like this. The next setting is going to be determining how long the message is retained for. So this is how long the message will be held in the HSM. You can either use a fixed date, which is going to be a set amount of time, then it would be able to be deleted. You can also use indefinite, which came out in version 6.0, which allows you to go in and modify the retention after the fact. So an item can be archived. You can use our archive web product to go in, set the retention time at a later date, and it gives you a lot more flexibility. And then if you're in a legal situation where you need to hold on to all mail forever, then there's infinite. I'm going to take this time right here to sort of go a little bit off track and start talking about the deletion process, because the automatic document deletion, it involves that mostly. When a message is older than its retention time, it's not eligible for deletion right away. This is done as a way to prevent data loss. To fully remove an item from the HSM, it has to be older than its retention date, and it has to be marked for deletion, and then a delete job needs to run. The automatic document deletion setting here doesn't actually delete any mail. What it does is it trips the mark for deletion flag to allow items to be deleted by the delete job. There's other ways to trip this off by using advanced search, but if you don't want to have to do the legwork of going through and searching through documents to mark them for deletion, the automatic document deletion allows you to sort of automate this process so that it's not something that you'll have to take care of down the road. It helps out quite a bit when you're 5-6 years in and you're starting to get a little bit tight on space. So this is the kind of thing you'd like to set up when you initially set up your retention categories. The automatic document deletion setting always needs to be longer than the retention settings. And I can explain this a little bit better with the graphic on my other slide, but I'll bring that up in a moment. The last setting here is the keep alive time. This is extra time added at the very end of the life cycle to keep the document alive. It's generally used as a just in case so that you don't end up losing data. You know, there's some sort of court discovery that comes up that you need to pull data back for it. You can give yourself a little bit of extra wiggle room. Oops. And there's the error message telling me that it can't be shorter than my retention time. So I'm going to turn the setting off to allow us to move forward. So the next panel here is dealing with the shortcut settings. So the three major options here is to keep the original message in Exchange. All we do is make a copy of it to the HSM. Again, you don't get any space savings because the original message is left behind. You can also delete the original. This is not very popular with end-user mailboxes. However, it's very useful if you have a journal mailbox that you have for legal reasons. Rather than store all of the journal data in an Exchange mail store, you can copy it over to an HSM, delete the original from Exchange, and free up that space. With the shortcut creation, the shortcut generally will create at the time of archiving. However, you have options to set up delays. The delays work like this. The item is archived at day 1. We can go in here and then set a delay for 5 days, say. What will happen is on day 1 through to day 5, the item will show up as a full message in Exchange. However, at day 5, it'll convert over to a shortcut. So you will get the space savings. This is a lot more popular in environments where you need tighter archiving and you have mobile device deployment, as the shortcuts aren't supported on the mobile devices currently. However, to get the conversion to happen, you need to run a shortcut synchronization job. So basically at day 5, when the shortcut synchronization job runs, it converts the shortcut from a full message to the shortcut. The final option here is the lifespan of the shortcut. By default, it is set to keep the shortcut forever. So this can be problematic at times because if an item is deleted from the HSM because its retention is met and it's been marked for deletion and a delete job is run, the shortcut may still exist out in a mailbox, and if a user tries to open it up, they'll get an error message saying that the document no longer exists. So it's pertinent that you set the deletion time for the shortcuts. Ideally, you want to set this to the very end of the life cycle, so that would be, you know, the total length of retention plus the keep alive time. After the keep alive time is when you should set the deletion. I'm going to just go back to keep original so that we can move forward to the final panel. The last option in the retention settings is the allow automatic document deletion. I'll touch on this briefly. What this does is it allows the shortcut synchronization job to monitor to see if the end user has deleted a shortcut. If the shortcut is no longer in the end user's mailbox, it'll go in and mark the item for deletion. This can be problematic because when an item's marked for deletion, it's generally hidden from search results and advanced search. There are ways to go in and try and pull back this data if it has been marked for deletion. So it's not gone, it's a little bit hidden. This setting should be used lightly. If you have any further questions, feel free to open up a support ticket and we can explain it a little bit more there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back over to the slides. And I'm just going to bring up a graphic here that comes in our administration guide. It basically describes the life cycle of an archived message. So Depending on how you've set your life cycle when you created your retention category, either on the receive date or the archive date is going to be the point in time where this cycle starts from. When the item is archived, basically we can go in here and have a delay. So the delay shows up as the shortest point here on the graphic. Generally, it's done a week, 2 weeks to a month, depending on your guys' environment and your archiving needs. Basically, the delay doesn't lengthen the retention time in any way. It just happens during the timeline. So you'll notice that it doesn't extend the deletion time any. It just occurs during the life cycle. The same goes for the shortcut deletion as well. It doesn't affect the length or cause any sort of delays with it. So again, it doesn't affect the total length. You will notice though, however, with the retention time and the keep alive time, it does extend the life of the message. And finally, the deletion time would be, again, when the message is older than the retention time, the keep alive time has expired, the message has been marked for deletion, and a delete job has been run. If a delete job hasn't been run, the item will still be in the system, even if it is marked for delete, as I've mentioned before. It allows there still be a way for us to go in and try and pull the data back, generally through using advanced search. Okay, I guess at this point I'd like to open the floor up for any questions, so feel free to bring them up in the bottom here, and I'll try and answer them as we go along. There's a question here about if an email retention was set for 5 years, and then the email was moved to a 3-year retention, will the 3-year retention be applied to it, or does it continue having the 5-year retention? Generally, with archived messages, the retention that is applied at the time of archiving is the length that's going to go to the message throughout the lifespan. So if it was originally archived with a 5-year retention, it's going to be a 5-year retention indefinitely. If you unarchive and re-archive the message with a 3-year retention, one of the versions of the message would have a 3-year retention, but the original version of the message is going to still have the 5-year retention. Any other questions in regards to retention categories? Okay, there's another question that just came up here. So the retention is not overwritten by the shorter retention? No. This is done more for legal preservation. The original archive length, so say if you're in an environment and you've set your retention to like 50, 60 years or something along those lines, and you realize you need to start purging data, there's really no way to shorten that retention length. Ideally, it's better to set a shorter retention length, so say like 5 to 7 years, and then if you need to keep the data longer, just don't run a delete job. The delete job is the only process that would remove the mail. If the mail expires retention, it still doesn't delete itself. There's no automated process for that. You have to run the job. The other reason for having the one write for retention time, again, is for data preservation. You know, you get into a situation where perhaps something happens in IT and somebody's trying to tamper with the email archive. This will allow the data to be preserved without any sort of tampering. Okay, any other questions? Oh, hang on a second there. There's a question here. I did go over setting up retention categories initially. I'll touch back on that again. Basically, what happens is each HSM store has a schema. So if we pop here into the archive configurations and under stores here, currently we only have one HSM store and one schema. So this schema connects to this store. So when you're in the retention category, you can select which schema that you're going to write to. So if you were in an environment where you had 2 HSMs, you would then have 2 schemas, and you would, under the retention category parameters here, you would see both schemas, and you'd be able to set up a job to target one HSM versus the other. If you're creating a new HSM store because you've run out of space on an old one, it's best practice to set up the new HSM on a new schema and then create new retention categories for it so that all the mail points to the new HSM and is stored there. You can then go into the actual settings for the HSM store itself, and you can set the old store to a read-only mode. It's at the very end of the administration wizard. Oops, sorry, I over-clicked here. Give me 1 second. So basically, you would check off this write protected, mark as read-only on the old store so that no new data is written there. And then on the new store, you wouldn't have that checked off. You'll still be able to get access to all the old data on the old store, and you'll be able to write to a new store. Okay, if there isn't any other questions, what I'll do is I'll wrap up the presentation for today. If you have, oh, sorry, I guess there's another question. My apologies. You do not need to set up automatic document deletion to purge old items. As I mentioned before, you can use the advanced search. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to target a mailbox in particular. So we'll use my mailbox as the example. And what we're going to do is we're going to add me here, and we're going to search for all the email that's been archived. What will happen is all the messages that have been archived under this account will show up here in the results. We'll select all the messages. We can right-click, and you can select Mark for Deletion here. So this is one way to go in and mark the items for deletion so that they will delete. The other option, though, is when you're setting up a retention category, is to set up the automatic document deletion. Or sorry, not the automatic document deletion, the automatic document, sorry, confusing myself here. There's automatic cleanup, and then there's automatic document deletion. So you can either set this when you originally set up the retention category to clean up the items, or you can go in and use advanced search if you haven't set that up before. Again, if there's any other questions, feel free to open up a support ticket on our website. Just sort of give us an overview of what you'd like to know more about, and we can definitely reach out to you. Jill's question is about sessions regarding high availability. I don't know if it's on the roadmap currently, but what I can do is I will mention it to management, and hopefully we can plan one for high availability. And as I've said before, if there's any questions or anything that didn't get answered today, please feel free to open up a ticket. We're more than happy to reach out to you and help you get through any questions or issues you have. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.